Welcome, everyone, to the Extraordinary Coaches podcast. Today, I'm here with Stephanie. And the funny thing is that this is our, I think, third time that we're trying to record something. Yesterday, we had the initial appointment, but because of Wi-Fi problems, it all didn't work out. And then just before this moment, we started to record again. And again, there were Wi-Fi problems. There were people coming in, and it was all this chaotic mess. But here we are, and we noticed that both of us were okay with it. And it's going to be a shorter podcast because of it, but I believe it's still going to be very valuable. Stephanie, how would you introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks, Mick. Thanks for having me here today. Stephanie Casaboun, and I am a writer, a creative, and an empowerment coach. And my specialty is really looking for possibilities within our own perceived limitations, which is essentially coaching summed up in like one sentence.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned it before at our take one. You said it as well, and the sentence I made you repeat it because I didn't fully comprehend it. But now that we've been talking about it for a bit, that is actually, to me, that is actually the essence of coaching. Can you say it one more time?
Yeah. So looking for possibility within the confines of our own perceived limitations.
I love that. Also, because I do want to mention it, you mentioned the book that was related to that. Do you want to get into that bit?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So there's this book called The Book of If. And it was given to me as a gift, actually, before I was even a coach. And the idea is it's about 200 pages of what if this or what if that. And to me, that's a lot about what coaching is kind of accompanying our client into this place of what would it look like if, or how would things shift if? Because I think, in our own world, we have a default reality of how things will play out. And so if we give ourselves permission to slow down enough and see possibilities, they could be possibilities we absolutely don't want. And when we give ourselves permission to acknowledge, oh, I don't want that possibility, it reassures that we're in alignment with where we're headed.
Yeah.
It can also open up a whole world of things that we never knew existed. And so it's beneficial, looking at it through both lenses.
Yeah. I love the what if. It's such a thing with no pressure on it. You're just shining a light on another aspect of it, and then the other person gets to do with that whatever they want to do with it. There's no, oh, you should do this or whatever. You're just creating space. Like, what if it doesn't have to be this way? And to just ask someone that and to lean into that is already such a, they can have a huge revelation just because of that single sentence, just that question.
Yeah, because most people's lives are, quote, so busy, right? That if they have a moment alone, a lot of people are escaping, if you were, right? They're escaping even to nature. I mean, they can escape to social media and to Netflix and those things too, but they're just like, oh gosh, I need to escape the busy. And I think what coaching offers is an escape, but in a different way. An escape into possibility.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
To get a little bit into you, I remember what sparked me so much about your profile on LinkedIn was your bio, which says from saving lives to changing lives, if I'm correct. And I love that. Do you want to go into that a little bit? What got you into coaching?
Yeah. So, when I was a kid, I decided at the age of 10 I was gonna be a physician, and specifically a neonatologist. I had watched some documentary, who knows, 60 Minutes, I don't know. And I'd seen something and I was like, oh, and I loved kids. And I was like, oh, I'm going to work with kids, and this was my idea. And And then that evolved into just helping people. Like I just realized like that was my calling, is I was here to help people. And yeah, in my 20s in medical school, and I ended up actually getting a master's in medical science as a physician associate, and which was a career that kind of cropped up and didn't really exist when I was little, or wasn't known, I guess. And yeah, I worked as an emergency medicine physician associate for 12 and a half years. And that took me, obviously through my 20s and into my mid to late 30s. And, I stepped back from that. It was exactly what I needed, and burned me out, to a degree with the level of stress in a position like that. And so I went on this creative path of performing and writing and producing, and really getting in touch with that other part of myself. The part of me that when younger played piano and was in the choir and, did a lot of creative things. But as you get into serious studies and your profession, they kind of fall to the wayside.
Yeah.
And so I reconnected with those pieces of me and found myself connected in the creative world and in the entertainment industry. And it was through a group called the Hollywood Women's Collective that I encountered my first coach. And she was actually a beautiful woman. Her name's Debbie, and she's a love and self-forgiveness coach. And she did a presentation for our group. And as she left, I was like, I need more of that. What is that? And that was my first exposure to coaching.
Beautiful.
And it was so profound. And it was even in a group setting. I think there were 20 women.
Yeah.
It was just exactly what I didn't know I needed, to enhance my life and open up possibilities for myself. And she was the first one who I had ever heard, and I know it exists in this world. She said, obstacles are our stepping stones to our future. And I never really quite heard it like that. And she took everybody in the group through this obstacle exercise, and it was like, oh yeah, it's making peace with your challenges, that then you free your mind to create your way forward. You create your freedom around your spirit to relax and trust the path, right?
Yeah.
And so I ended up coaching with her. She was my very first coach. And from then it was in this moment where I was actually looking for, my kids had started preschool, and I was looking for, how do I get back in? And I had been exploring non-clinical opportunities for medical professionals. It's like, if you don't want to go back to the hospital, what do you do? And it was, the list was short, but it was kind of like, okay, you could consult, or you could consult for a lawyer, consult for an insurance company. It was like these other things. And then it was like coaching. And when Debbie came in, it was just like this alignment of, oh, she's a coach. I just really realized this was an opportunity for me. And it was, full steam ahead from that moment of like, this is it. This is where like my medical career meets my creative sabbatical. Right. And so now, from saving people in an emergency room, now it's like, oh no, like we're just changing the trajectory of your life, because otherwise it's this default that you locked yourself into. And now, like, together we're co-creating real change for you, to the fulfilling life that you really want.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. I really like what you're saying about, the default future that's going to play out, and you as a coach being there to help them shift a little bit away from that. And I mean, it truly resonates with me and all the clients that I see. It's that their life is going a certain way, and they just don't know how to, or they don't even know that they can change that. And I think it's very interesting to, as a coach, step in and show them, that what if it can be different. I think that's very powerful.
Yeah.
So you've been coaching for how long now?
Yeah. In 2018 is when I started coaching. and received my certification, my initial certification. So,
Okay.
what is that, 5 years now?
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 years. Just at 5 years. And, I think one of the things, speaking back to that default future that you're speaking about is, we hear it all the time that our subconscious is kind of running the show, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's important to bring that into the conversation. It's just not like, there's no predestiny. It's not, that's not what we're talking about. But what we are talking about is that we get in patterns of behavior as humans. And because of that, our subconscious is kind of running us. Yeah. And so, we react a lot of time to any number of situations, based on habit, because this is the way we handle these situations, right? Yeah. And so, coaching just kind of short circuits that, right? It gives you that opportunity to slow down enough to be like, is this how I want to respond to these given set of circumstances? Yeah. I think one of the things with my clients initially that I love to remind them of is like, literally every moment of your life is an opportunity to slow down and make a different choice. And if you can own that different choice will then lead you to an infinite number of alternate possibilities, right? Like, you can really see how the nuance of like a 5% perspective shift could change everything.
That's beautiful. And I love that question. I think how I've always phrased it is, who do I want to be in this moment? Which very much relate to how do I want to respond? Because who you are says something about how you respond. And it reminded me what you were saying of when I was still studying in Amsterdam. I came across all these teachers, and one of the things I learned, or what I always knew, but now I could put it in words, is that the things that you do create the results that you're getting, which is such a simple thing. But then I realized the results that I'm getting, I'm not really happy with them. I should start changing what I do, because I can't just change the results, because the results come from what I do. So if I just change what I do, then my results will change. And then to take it a step further, in what way do I want to change what I do? I know this is not what I want, but I don't know what I do want. So there comes the question, who do I want to be? And when you've got that sort of figured out, then you can tap into, well, what choices would that person make? And from there on, your results are going to change. And I feel like in that area, I didn't even know what coaching was. But in terms of that, I've been coaching myself in a way. And I always get icks when people say that, because I don't really believe that you can. But yeah, in that way, if you just open that room for possibility for yourself, I feel like a lot can change already.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you can testify to this too, but no, we can't technically coach ourselves, but how many times have you been in a conversation with a client where something comes up for them? And like, I've literally even shared with my client, you know what? I'm going to try that too, or I'm going to explore that question as well. Things come up for other people. It's like, I'm not coaching myself, but because we're in this co-creative relationship, aligned for their goals, dreams, hopes. Well, the fact that they're even posing these questions for themselves, well, yeah, sometimes I like to try those on as well. I mean, where would they take me? Right. Yeah. I think, when you're lucky enough, maybe lucky is not the right word, but I do consider myself lucky. Hard work meets luck, if you will. Lucky enough to coach people who inspire you. Then when they have these huge ahas and major awarenesses, and that as a person, they're already change makers or force for change or super inspiring. It's kind of like, oh yeah. And you know what? I'm going to share with you that I'm going to try that on as well. Do you know?
How did you get to that point? of coaching people who inspire you? How did you do that?
You know, I think when you're starting any business, right, you just want the business to be successful. And so, and I think a lot of coaches, you know, have this initial moment of, okay, I'm looking for clients. I'm open for business, you know. It's like that's that initial piece, right?
Yeah.
How do I build this, you know? And I think it was definitely Rich who introduced me to the idea, and Rich Litvin for your listeners, master coach and incredible leadership coach. But it is such a profound shift when you're having a clarity consultation or whatever you will, to ask yourself as coach before that call is, what's the question I need to ask to determine if I want to work with this person? I think a lot of the questions are for the client, right? You want to make this opportunity for them to have this incredible awareness and really show them what coaching is. Like, you are so all in on that, right? Every coach is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's initial. And when you can start to lean into, as coach, okay, which is the question for me to determine if I want to spend the next 5 months with this person.
Yeah.
If I am the right, and by right, I mean the best coach for this person, not just any coach, but if I could do it, is very different than, I am like all in and made for this particular 5-month journey.
Yeah. Well, so you had that question that you asked people sort of to filter out, the people that don't belong to you. How did you, but it can be very challenging. If I look back on where I started from, and this might be beliefs that I had, but I believe that you can't just immediately straight go into coaching people who inspire you, because that's like scary. Like, how did you deal with all of those limiting beliefs or thoughts that came on your way when you decided that you were going to coach people who inspire you?
Yeah, I think there's a learning curve too as a coach, right? Like, like within any business, right? If I'm 2 months into a journey and, the client isn't showing up. I mean, this is not me not getting paid. So I want to be clear about this, right? Because this is, the journey is in advance, right? The investment is done. So this is me showing up more all in than the person who's made the investment.
Yeah.
That, when you have that happen to you, that's when you know you're not coaching the right people.
Because you'd say there has to be this balance where it has to be equal on both sides.
I definitely think the coach can't be more all in on the client's dreams than the client is in their own, right? And so if
I think that's a different point, though.
How so?
Me being all in on their dreams is different than me being all in on coaching them. As in, I'm never attached to someone's dreams. I mean, of course, in a way, I care for them, but I'm never going to make them achieving their dreams my responsibility. So I don't think I'm ever all in on their dreams, like, oh, you have to do this and I have to show up for this person, else they won't achieve their dream. I'll just show up for the person.
Right.
Do you get
I think we're saying something similar. I think maybe it's just, So exactly, and perhaps it was my own verbiage. I think there's this moment, as a coach, where, the client has to bring the motivation.
Yes.
Right? And then we hold their feet to the fire because
Yes.
we understand through our conversations where they're headed.
Yeah. And then to attach that to what we said before, I do believe there, or maybe I've done it wrong, though I don't really believe in that, but to share a bit, I believe that there has been times where in the whole coaching relationship, I always tried to be 100% involved. Maybe, I'm human. Sometimes it might be 70, sometimes, but I tried to be 100% involved in the coaching relationship. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed that as a coach, I should take the first step in that. If I don't show the client that I'm 100% involved, it's going to be very difficult for them to mirror that. So I do feel like there have been times where I was 100% involved because I've always been throughout the whole months that I've worked with them. And some months there was a little, I noticed them going from 100 to 60 because some things were either not playing well in their life. But I do feel like that as a coach, your job is still to be fully 100% involved, because I guess that's part of the coaching. Not that I feel like they need to have the coaching and they need to show up, because if they don't want to, they don't. But I do feel like it's a very powerful message that you send them, like, hey, even though you're not fully involved and not seeing it, I'm still here. I'm still 100% there for you. So I feel like in that way, there have been moments where I have been more involved in the coaching than the coachee. How do you relate to that?
Mm-hmm. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think what you're describing is something that I feel like I encounter about 2 months in to any new relationship. And it's this moment, because you said they go from 100 to 60. And it's this moment where things start to shift for the client. Mm-hmm. What happens is the people in their lives, there starts to be a disconnect because things are shifting and happening, but then it's causing a bit of a ripple effect in their day-to-day lives, particularly in their relationships, right? Yeah. And so there's this unease within the client because they're starting to recognize, oh, I like where this is going, and how does that work within, the relationships that I've cultivated, right? So it's because the person, it's a tricky moment in coaching, because if the client isn't prepared that it's coming, it will absolutely, it's like pulling the emergency brake. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because most humans are more about avoiding pain than improving, right? And so when given the choice, which is why advertising is always very much, geared toward avoid this, don't do that. Because we want to avoid pain, discomfort. And so if the client isn't prepared for that and know that it's coming, it can be really tricky, I think.
There's two
to get them over that hurdle.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like there were two things that came up when you said that. One of them is that I think that differs, but now that you've mentioned it like that, I never really realized it. But if I look at it, there's sort of two ways that all of my clients have gone into. Either in 2 months, they felt like completely giving up and their life got like a complete mess, like totally, that you knew that they changed, but the effect of that was crazy. And on the other hand, you have the people that after 2 months, their life is absolutely amazing. It's exactly how they have wanted it to be. And it's like, we're done, sort of, So I do feel like there's different types of people. But then for this group, oh no, sorry.
No, I don't want to interrupt you. This is great.
But then for the second group, the group that, has their life turned into a complete mess. You talked about preparing them, for that bump. How do you do that?
Honestly, I talk about it, and once they commit to coaching, I basically walk them through, so that they know, and I give them examples, sometimes from prior clients without mentioning specifics, but, kind of give them something to look out for, make them aware that they're going to start noticing situations around them that they've lived within for years, but now it's hitting them different, rubbing them wrong. There's certain exchanges that don't feel okay, and that is actually a sign of your growth and nothing to be afraid of, right? And really, it's just with the awareness. Have the awareness, and then when we meet, let's acknowledge it in the space. Let's talk through those specifically and see, where to go from there. When you talk about those two different groups, it reminds me, and I wonder, I would love to ask you, if you think of two clients, that fit in the two pathways that you described. I wonder if one was inspired to make change and the other one was desperate to make change. Because what I've found is the ones that are desperate for change, when it starts changing, they get really uncomfortable. And the ones that are inspired to make change 2 months in, and they're like, this is amazing. Why didn't I do this a year ago? That's what I found.
That's a crazy good question. I love how you made that distinction. Thank you so much for that. Because it definitely was. The person who was inspired to make that change. And I remember this was, I don't know how many months ago, but one of her things that she wanted to work on for herself was she was a therapist and she wanted to get more clients. And I think we were talking about 4 clients, a month at least. And the funny thing is that, she changed things. Life started to unfold. She was completely happy. She got those 4 clients within, the period that we were working together. And then we ended our relationship for the moment. And lately, somewhere this week, we were talking again, to meet up in real life, because I've been coaching her online, and I've always been in another country. Now that I'm back in the Netherlands, we were like, we have to meet up live for a cup of coffee or something like that. But to actually get a date and an hour where we could see each other was too difficult, because she had too many clients. So she was like, it's your fault, because now I don't have free time anymore to even see you. And I was like, that's crazy, because what had happened is that she got on that, not a downward spiral, she got on that, exponential growth path, which is completely different to the other person who, you can just see them in their head spiraling down, and they were desperate for change. So thank you for having that one. I think that's crazy.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And what's amazing, and that's what I always say, is whether you're desperate for change or inspired to make change, coaching will work for you, right? I just think it's the people in the middle, and maybe that's really more the differentiation. When we were talking about clients who inspire you, they don't have to be like, oh my gosh, this is where I'm going, or I can't make, my life can't be this, I'm not fulfilled, and it doesn't have to, it can be either of those extremes, is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But the people down the middle, right? It'd be nice. I'd like to do that.
I don't think I've ever been paid by someone who was in that mindset, paid for coaching. There's no urgency behind it. And I think then, there's this saying, everyone needs a coach. What's your take on that saying?
I think needs a tricky word. I think everybody would benefit from a coach.
Yeah.
I can make that acknowledgement. The need piece.
Yeah.
Well, it depends.
No, I agree with that.
Because if I say you need a coach, then I'm deciding what's better for your future.
Yeah, exactly.
Or that somehow you're not fulfilled.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, it's everyone can benefit.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to decide if you would like to invest in yourself in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, we share that one. And I agree with you on that one. I think I've always said to people who say that everyone needs a coach, I agree. Everyone who thinks that they need a coach, yeah, they need a coach.
Mm-hmm.
You decide for yourself. So if you feel like, oh, at this moment I really need a coach, well then yeah, you need a coach. Maybe it's even to find out that you didn't need a coach after all, but I feel like we have to go through that process. Thanks for sharing that one. We are almost nearing the end, so I want to ask you my last questions.
Okay.
What's your definition of an extraordinary coach?
That's great. To me, an extraordinary coach is someone who holds their client accountable to what they say they want their life to look like. And who shows up prepared to ruffle feathers in order for the client to get exactly what they want.
Yeah. Nice.
Because I think there's this piece in coaching, and it can be tricky, right? Which is, especially, I have clients I've coached now for 4 years, actually. And there's always this piece of me of like, how do I ensure I'm not doing a disservice? What if they could get more growth from another coach?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm constantly checking in on that. And I'm constantly renegotiating with them on exactly where we're headed, exactly where, it's not like therapy where it's just like endless, we meet every other week until the end of time. And I think it's our responsibility to ensure it doesn't fall into that trap of, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, let's renegotiate, let's create new awarenesses. Where are we headed? I mean, new awarenesses in every call, of course, but you understand what I'm saying. Long term, the coach is like, where are you headed?
Yeah.
I love Rich's, and I'm not, Rich, I think I talk about Rich a lot because I think, and I shared this with you, I did a deep dive with him in February of 2020, literally 1 week before everything got shut down. And I came home from that and I'm like, my life has changed. I invested more than I've ever invested in myself outside of university to go to a 3-day deep dive. You know what I mean? And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And when I walked away from that, I was like, oh my gosh, my life has changed. And, a week later, the world is on pause and I'm like, oh my gosh, now what? Talk about, this, you come back with all these ideas of how, talk about embracing obstacles. This is exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly where I'm headed as a coach. And then a week later, like the world is, and you're just like, ah. So, I bring that up because, it can be a single exchange with somebody that impacts their life forever. It doesn't have to be a 5-month agreement, right? It can be a clarity consultation. I think as coach, it's always important to recognize that you don't know the lasting impact that you will have on a person.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Still talking about Rich 3 years later.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right? Yeah. Are you an extraordinary coach?
I believe I am. And I believe that I'm just getting started.
What do you, sorry, if I may, I noticed you say that sort of in a way where you were sorry for it, or you were like, the tone of voice that you used was in a way of, I'm sorry to disappoint, but I believe that I am. Does that ring a bell, or was that just how I perceived it?
Oh, I mean, perhaps I came across that way. That wasn't where I was. It was, it was an ownership and actually an acknowledgement. I had just finished up some mentor coaching, and the feedback was, you have the potential to be a force in this industry, by a mentor of mine. And I've been sitting with that, because that feels like a huge responsibility in a way. Like if someone's like, you have the potential to be a force in this industry, it's like,
now you have
do
to
I want to be a force in this industry? I don't know. You know what I mean? And so your question of like, are you an extraordinary coach? It was like, okay, what was my definition?
Yeah.
Yes, I am. And then thinking on and reflecting on my most recent feedback of, you have the potential to, that was the tag on of, and I'm just getting started, you know?
Yeah.
Like I've got a lot more to do.
I love that. Thanks, Stephanie, for this. I mean, it was a short talk, but I really enjoyed it. There's some beautiful insights that I've had. Thanks for sharing all of that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for finding me and on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I love the platform.
I'm so glad we're connected, and I look forward to staying connected.
Yeah, I love that. And thanks everyone for listening, and I'll see you at the next one.